Welcome to First Sleep Aid, calm stories to help you unwind, learn, and fall asleep. From true crime to curious facts and thoughtful ideas, always softly spoken. Subscribe now and take a deep breath. You're in good hands.
Some figures, they just etch themselves into our collective memory. Not just for what they did, but for, well, who they were.
Absolutely.
Today we're diving deep into the story of one such man. And it's a journey that really starts with a name.
But a name that went through this incredible transformation, didn't it?
Exactly, shedding one skin for another. Not just Clay, a name he'd consciously, leave behind.
Right. And not just champion either. I mean, he earned that title, defended it fiercely, but it was only one part of him.
Or even just boxer.
Uh-huh.
Because his impact, it stretched so far beyond the ring.
Much further.
No, our exploration today centers on Muhammad Ali. 3 syllables. A name that became synonymous with challenging the world's expectations, forging his own path, just unwavering conviction.
And it's such a complex narrative, isn't it? Far from a simple story of just winning. He was full of, well, human contradictions.
Capable of great kindness, you hear these stories, but then moments of real sharpness, too.
Definitely. Profound wisdom sometimes, but also prone to missteps, like anyone. But through it all, he was always resolutely himself.
A force, stirring admiration, sometimes discomfort, often both at the same time.
And his battles weren't just under the bright lights, were they? They were in courtrooms.
In public discourse, in personal relationships.
And maybe the biggest one, the struggle to define his own identity when the world was so eager to do it for him. He wrestled with norms, with silence, with limitations.
With understanding who he was and who he wanted to become, it was ongoing.
Yeah, an evolution.
And many stories like this start with a big victory, right? But ours kind of takes a different angle. It starts almost with an act of deliberate disobedience.
That's a great way to put it. His character was really shaped by the moments he chose to say no.
So this isn't just a list of dates and events. It's a deep dive into how one man dared to redefine what a black athlete could sound like.
How he could look, what he could believe.
All while climbing to the very top of his sport, and really beyond. His story tied to Fist in the Ring, sure, but just as much about faith, about this unique rhythm he had.
And the weight, the sheer weight of that kind of brilliance.
What's so fascinating is how he carried this name the world tried to sort of force on him, while he just insisted only I get to tell you who I am.
It's powerful. This dive, it unveils not just the greatest, but maybe one of the most intricate, compelling figures of 20th century America.
So our mission today, let's unpack those key moments, the forces that molded Muhammad Ali. Offer you, the listener, a richer understanding of his journey and why it still matters so much.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start at the beginning. January 17th, 1942, Louisville, Kentucky. Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. enters the world.
And enters a deeply segregated American South. Born in a black neighborhood in a black hospital, Louisville was a city where life was just fundamentally divided by race.
Buses, schools, lunch counters, segregated.
Yeah.
And the opportunities, the futures available, just not equal.
No, he was born during a world war, but the battle lines in his own country were just as stark, weren't they?
Louisville maybe wasn't the Deep South in terms of, that overt terror.
Right, not the same level of violence, perhaps,
Yeah.
but it was definitely not equal. It had this kind of polite inequality.
Polite inequality. That's interesting. So black families could own property?
Yes, but only in certain areas. They could work in the big hotels downtown, maybe as waiters or cleaners.
We couldn't stay there as guests.
Exactly. And a black child, even a brilliant one, expressing that brilliance too loudly, that could bring trouble. He was born into this sort of parallel America, 2 sets of rules, all based on skin color.
His parents, Cassius Sr., his father, was a sign painter. Talented, but known for a bit of a temper, too.
Yeah, fiery, but underneath a deep belief in dignity, even if his methods weren't always peaceful.
And his mother, Odessa. The quiet anchor, you get the sense.
Absolutely, a devout Baptist. Her faith was this source of strength, holding the family together with this quiet pride. They lived in the West End. Modest home, but rules, structure, respect. He was definitely loved there.
But even as a kid, he was restless, right?
Yeah.
Full of energy.
Oh, yeah. Sharp mind, always asking questions, talking back. There was this rhythm to him, this need to move, even in a world trying to hold him back.
Dancing while walking down the street, announcing himself.
That's the picture painted. But then, step outside the house.
And the reality of the segregated city hits. He's a black boy in a white city, denied a seat at a lunch counter, barred from certain pools.
Understanding you have to kind of temper your confidence in certain places, watch what you say to certain people. Ambition, outspokenness in black kids, often seen as a threat back then.
So Louisville shaped him, but maybe more through resistance than encouragement.
I think that's exactly right. The limitations, the barriers he hit, just because of his race, they were crucial in forging the man he became.
Couldn't have known then his name would be known globally.
No way. But that world taught him early on why names matter, and why, eventually, he'd give up the one he was born with and demand the world use the one he chose.
Which brings us to that pivotal moment. He's 12, the bicycle.
Ah, yes, the red Schwinn. A Christmas gift. Parked outside the Columbia Auditorium.
And it wasn't just about losing the bike, was it? It tapped into something deeper.
Exactly. That feeling that things could just be taken away. He rode that bike all over the West End, this flash of pride on wheels.
Leaves it for a few moments, comes back.
And it's gone. At 12, he doesn't have the language for systemic injustice, right? But what he feels is this raw loss. Not just the object, but control, respect, self-worth.
So he reacts like a kid,
Right.
angry, storms inside, fists clenched, yelling he's going to beat up whoever took it.
And a man overhears him, a white police officer, Joe Martin.
But Martin wasn't just a cop.
No, he also ran a small boxing gym, in the basement of the Columbia gym, actually.
So Martin sees this skinny, angry, loud kid.
And says something that changes everything without knowing it. Well, you better learn how to fight first.
Not destiny, just a furious kid finding an outlet.
Precisely. And that gym? Pretty humble place. Musty, dim lights, worn ring, cracked mirrors.
But for young Cassius Clay, it became a sanctuary, a place for that anger.
Cathedral for his anger, you could say. A place where it could finally have a structured outlet.
So Martin starts teaching him the basics. Jab, move, breathe.
He was awkward at first, apparently, hands too low, chin too high, but he had that natural speed. And something else.
The talk.
The talk, even then. Predicting moves, taunting sparring partners, doing little dance steps.
So he wasn't really fighting yet, more like performing.
Performing, exploring, and in that ring, he felt safe. Not because he couldn't get hit, but because getting hit came with rules. And crucially, he could hit back.
And he got obsessed pretty quickly.
Totally obsessed, gave up ice cream, pork, started jogging in old boots before dawn, mimicking fighters on TV in the mirror.
While other kids are doing homework, he's fighting the heavy bag, the jump rope, the air.
He was transforming from a boy who lost something to someone refusing to be taken again, refusing to stay small. That's where the legend really began to take root. Not effortless greatness, but that refusal.
And those punches he started throwing, they weren't just punches, were they? They were like communication.
Articulation, yeah. Punctuation in his own language. That Columbia gym basement, sweaty, dusty, the sound of gloves on canvas, that's where he started communicating with his whole body. Movement, power, rhythm.
And not just hitting, but dancing. That exceptional speed in those reflexes.
Almost uncanny. While other kids were just learning footwork, he already understood evasion, how to disappear right when a punch was coming.
Ducking low, springing up, sliding sideways, leaving guys swinging at air.
And all the while, that constant rhythmic talk, not just boasts, it had a beat to it, predicting rounds for knockouts.
And then doing it.
Astonishingly often, that early quote, "If you even dream of beating me, you'd better wake up and apologize."
He's barely a teenager, already performing the myth.
Exactly, crafting the legend before it was fully written.
His coaches saw the talent, obviously, but tried to rein in the style a bit.
Joe Martin admired the gifts, but wanted humility, technical fundamentals. But Cassius, he wanted more than just wins. He needed to be seen, acknowledged.
And he started winning. Amateur record built up fast.
By 15, it was notable. 16, National Golden Gloves champ. 17, he's fighting beyond Louisville, Chicago, New York.
Which was huge for a kid from the West End back then. Just crossing town was something.
And he wasn't just traveling, he was leaving an impression everywhere, impossible to ignore.
But the ring was more than just a path to a career for him.
Oh, much more. It was proof. Proof he mattered, proof of excellence in a world that expected little from him beyond quiet obedience. And as the training got tougher, the talk got louder, he started realizing
He wasn't just going to be another boxer.
he was going to be a presence, a force.
How did Louisville react to this?
Mixed bag. Quiet pride in parts of the black community. Nervousness elsewhere, especially among the white establishment. He wasn't just skilled, he was unapologetically himself.
breaking those unspoken rules about how much pride a black kid could show in the segregated 50s South.
With a smile and a boast. Inside the ring, he was hard to hit. Outside, he was starting to ask questions, just by being who he was that made people uncomfortable.
Fast fists, but an even faster mind.
And already grasping that the fight outside the ropes was just as important, maybe more so.
Okay, let's jump to August 1960. Rome. The Olympics. He's 18.
Arrives in Rome to compete, yeah. But really, he arrives to start building the myth on a global stage. He walked into that Olympic village like he owned the place.
Even though he'd never been outside the U.S. and was terrified of flying.
Terrified. Reportedly brought a parachute on the plane and wore it the whole way. But once he landed, that fear just seemed to vanish. Strutting around Rome like a movie star, chatting up reporters like old friends, smiling like the world was lucky to have him there.
And in his mind, that wasn't arrogance, it was just true.
Pretty much, he fought light heavyweight, and right away it was clear he didn't fit the mold. Not that he wasn't good enough, but his talent, his style, his whole persona just seemed bigger than the division.
Others just boxed. He glided.
Glided, whispered between jabs. It was a performance, creating his own language in the ring, this rhythm only he knew.
And the crowds loved it. Media too.
Ate it up, every wink, every quote, every prediction. Calling the round his opponents would fall, and then delivering. Smiling while throwing punches. Nobody had seen anything like it.
The final was against Piotr Tauski from Poland. Tougher fight.
A bit tougher, yeah. Seasoned southpaw. But Cassius still dominated. Hands like lightning, feet barely touching the canvas, mouth never stopping. Unanimous decision. Gold medal.
Stands on the podium, American flag draped around him, national anthem plays. Iconic image.
Absolutely iconic. A young black man, symbols of his nation. A nation that still wouldn't let him eat at certain lunch counters back home.
The irony is staggering.
But in that moment, in Rome, the world mostly saw the glowing image. America loved him, temporarily.
Comes back a hero. The Louisville Lip nickname starts popping up. Talk shows, autographs with jokes.
He played the part well. But underneath that charm, something else was brewing, wasn't there?
Yeah, that sense that the medal, the fame, it wasn't enough. Not without real equality.
That the fame was maybe just a costume if the society wouldn't truly accept him beyond the athlete. Because he knew what he was returning to.
Back to Louisville. Heroes welcome, parades, headlines.
Smiles, local interviews, some dinners, all the surface stuff. But underneath.
The same segregated reality.
Yeah.
Still side entrances, still couldn't eat at white diners, still had to be careful in white neighborhoods. Represented the USA globally, but denied basic dignity locally.
That contrast must have been incredibly stark. Disillusionment setting in fast.
Initially, he kept it quiet, maybe hoping he could somehow transcend it through charm, grace, more wins.
But the hollowness of that Olympic win in the face of ongoing racism became undeniable pretty quickly.
Which leads to that story, the famous one, about the diner.
Right. The details vary a bit in the telling over the years, but the core of it. He goes into a diner wearing his gold medal.
Symbol of his achievement, his service.
And gets refused service. Flat out, we don't serve your kind here. No exception for the Olympic hero.
Stunned, hurt, betrayed.
And according to that version of the story, he walks out, goes to a bridge over the Ohio River.
And throws the medal in. A gesture of profound disillusionment.
Now, whether he literally threw it in or just lost it, or if the story became a powerful metaphor he embraced later, Ali himself gave different accounts.
But the feeling was real. The betrayal by the country he represented, its limitations on him, that was absolutely real.
Undeniably, something hardened in him then. Not hate, maybe not yet, but clarity. Winning wasn't enough. Athletic achievement wouldn't overcome systemic racism.
So he kept smiling for the cameras, but the joy behind it changed, would be more knowing.
Exactly. And that question started forming just beneath the surface. What if the real fight isn't in the ring at all?
Let's talk about his style in the ring. It was revolutionary, wasn't it?
Completely. Too fast, too light on his feet for a heavyweight, too talkative, too, well, beautiful in a way. He broke the rules.
Hands low, relying on reflexes, not the high guard. Leaning back, way back, to dodge punches.
Bouncing constantly, perpetual motion, turning defense into a dance. And offense was this rhythmic expression.
Promoters and experts were skeptical at first, right? Too skinny, not enough power. Can't be pretty and brutal.
That was the thinking. His style wouldn't hold up against real heavyweight power. But he just kept proving them wrong. Climbed the pro ranks incredibly fast in the early 60s.
Backing up the talk with wins. city after city.
And the talk, predicting the round, the rhyming insults, the mid-round banter, mocking opponents who missed.
Float like butterfly, sting like a bee, his hands can't hit what his eyes can't see. That captured it perfectly.
Instantly iconic. The showmanship was entertainment, sure, drew huge crowds, massive media, but it was also strategy.
Psychological warfare, getting in their heads before the bell even rang.
Definitely. But there was something deeper, too, wasn't there? That element of resistance and the swagger.
In an era where black men were punished for being too assertive, for speaking out.
Every boast, every rhyme, every confident laugh was a deliberate act of self-magnification. It wasn't just fun or intimidation, it was a declaration. I'm here, I'm brilliant, you will not ignore me.
And people couldn't ignore him. They either hated him for the arrogance or loved him for the confidence.
No middle ground, really. He was fighting for wins, yes, but also for a new kind of visibility. Not trying to fit the mold, but forcing the world to reshape around him.
Which leads directly to the chance to fight Sonny Liston.
The big one. Miami Beach, 1964. Clay, the 22-year-old undefeated challenger, against Liston, the intimidating heavyweight champ.
Liston had this aura, didn't he?
Yeah.
Menacing. Everyone expected Clay to get demolished.
Overwhelmingly. But Clay launched this relentless psychological assault beforehand, calling Liston names, taunting him, predicting different rounds for the knockout.
And those predictions, it wasn't really about accuracy, was it? It was about controlling the narrative.
Seizing control, projecting confidence, sowing doubt. The media, the boxing establishment, they were furious with his behavior. Disrespectful, they called it.
He gave him so many lines. He can't beat me. I'm young, I'm handsome, I'm fast, I'm pretty. Even mock apologies for being arrogant.
Master promoter. Even then, fight night, Clay dances into the ring, full of confidence. Liston looks almost bored by it all.
But the fight itself,
Yeah.
nobody expected what happened.
Except maybe Clay. He was untouchable. Circling, jabbing, grinning, Liston swinging wildly, missing. By the third round, Clay actually stunned Liston.
And then, after the sixth, Liston refuses to come out for the seventh, claims a shoulder injury.
Controversial ending, but the result was clear. And Clay's reaction.
Explosive. I shook up the world. I'm the greatest. I'm the king of the world.
That moment, pure, raw emotion. It divided people instantly. Disrespectful arrogance to some, profound revelation to others, especially young Black Americans seeing this impossible win.
And right after, the whispers start getting louder about his connection to Malcolm X, the Nation of Islam.
Signaling a much deeper transformation was underway, beyond just boxing.
And then the announcement. Unapologetic. Cassius Clay is my slave name. I am now Muhammad Ali.
The media reaction was immediate and overwhelmingly negative, refusing to use the name.
But Ali stood firm. Becoming champion wasn't the end game for him. It was just the start of a new fight.
A fight for his identity.
It's key that the Nation of Islam found him when he was already questioning things, isn't it? Before he was even champ.
Absolutely. He was grappling with inequality, racism, despite his fame, that hollow feeling after the Olympics.
And his Baptist upbringing, quiet on race issues, contrasted sharply with the nation's message.
Starkly. His initial involvement was quiet, though, reading pamphlets, listening to recordings, secret meetings.
What did the nation offer him specifically?
Structure, pride, a sense of power, clear rules, no alcohol, pork, smoking, discipline, brotherhood, separation from white society, and crucially, that message, Black was beautiful.
And that idea about slavery stealing names, history, identity, that must have resonated deeply.
Immensely, given his experiences. And then he meets Malcolm X.
A huge influence, a mentor figure pushing self-respect.
They formed a real bond. Malcolm saw more than just talent in Clay. He saw reach, influence. Clay admired Malcolm's transformation, his strength.
Malcolm being backstage after the Liston fight just fueled the media fire.
Big time. And soon after, the nation officially announces his new name, Muhammad Ali, beloved of God.
A declaration, a rejection of imposed history.
But the backlash was fierce. Boxing associations, media refusing the name, opponents mocking him, Ernie Terrell being the most famous example.
Which led to that incredibly intense fight with Terrell, Ali punishing him for 15 rounds.
And asking over and over between punches, what's my name? It was a fight for existence, for self-naming.
He's made him more than a fighter, didn't it? It made him a threat.
A threat to the status quo, absolutely. To anyone resisting change.
So, 1964. He's 22, champion, but now affiliated with the Nation of Islam, which many Americans viewed with deep suspicion.
Right. And the media framed the name change not as spiritual growth, but as betrayal, brainwashing, ingratitude.
The perception lingered that he was still Cassius Clay, talented athlete, but not really thinking for himself.
It was seen as violating that quiet contract of fame for Black figures.
What were the unspoken rules of that contract?
Achieve greatness, but don't be too proud about it. Win, but don't challenge the rules of the game. Be Black, but not too freely, especially if it makes white people uncomfortable.
So the name Cassius Clay was deliberately kept alive by the media, by boxing bodies.
And that Terrell fight crystallized it. Terrell's refusal to use Ali, Ali's prolonged punishment, and that relentless question, what's my name? It was about existence itself.
The broader media backlash labels him arrogant, disrespectful, un-American, dangerous.
And the FBI starts paying close attention because of his loyalty to Malcolm X, even after their split.
It was easy to celebrate Cassius Clay, the charming Olympian. Much harder for many to accept Muhammad Ali, the unapologetic Black Muslim.
But Ali wasn't looking for love, was he? He was looking for truth. He knew shedding the name Clay meant losing Tumpert, but it meant embracing his real self.
Let's talk about that rift with Malcolm X. Malcolm was so pivotal initially.
Absolutely. Mentor, bridge between boxing, religion, ambition, awakening.
But the nation had a strict hierarchy under Elijah Muhammad.
And tensions grew with Malcolm. His influence, his independent speaking, questioning leadership, it led to his suspension, then exile.
Which put Ali in a really tough spot. Love and obligation to Malcolm, but loyalty to Elijah Muhammad and the nation.
A deep conflict. He chose to stay with the nation after the name change announcement, even with Malcolm there. But within a year, they'd fallen out completely.
Malcolm tried to build a more inclusive movement, urged Ali to join.
But Ali refused, even publicly denounced Malcolm as a traitor, aligning with the nation's stance.
Then Malcolm's assassination in February '65. Ali wasn't at the funeral. No public grief. Outward loyalty to the nation remained.
But the internal cost was immense. He later expressed profound regret for turning his back on Malcolm, called it one of his biggest mistakes.
That silence, that regret, stayed with him.
A deep wound, no doubt. Faith gave him clarity, belonging, but it came at a heavy price in that relationship. A silence he carried.
Think about the post-war American ideal for Black athletes. Humble, grateful, quiet unless spoken to.
Dignified in victory and defeat. Never make America uncomfortable. Think Jackie Robinson, Joe Louis navigating those expectations carefully.
And then comes Ali, saying whatever he wants, dressing how he wants, praising Allah, reciting poetry, declaring himself the greatest.
He made Blackness visible on his own terms, as a force, not as a victim or just entertainment.
The reaction from white America. Arrogance, disrespect, bad example, editorials, dismissive coverage, refusing the name.
Labeled un-American, dangerous, radical, not for what he did in the ring, but for who he dared to be publicly.
But even his critics were mesmerized sometimes, weren't they? The rhymes, the movement like jazz, that liquid motion. He was a spectacle.
Impossible to ignore. But for young Black Americans, he was a revelation. Saying what they couldn't, embodying pride as rebellion, making dignity look effortless.
He wasn't trying to be like the athletes before him. He was creating a whole new template, power and vulnerability.
And his emergence coincided with the civil rights movement gaining steam, Vietnam escalating. He became this mirror reflecting America's own contradictions about race, justice, war.
Setting the stage for his next huge act of defiance, refusing the draft.
1966. Vietnam War escalating. The draft is hitting young men hard, especially poor and Black communities.
Ali, now 24, global icon, gets reclassified 1A. Available for military service.
The world holds its breath. What will he do? And his answer is clear, simple, direct.
I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong.
16 words that changed everything. The logic was simple for him. They hadn't wronged him or his people. His battles were here, at home.
The backlash was immediate and brutal. Newspapers outraged, politicians condemning him, veterans demanding apologies.
Called a disgrace, a traitor, a puppet. His TV appearances became confrontations, interviewers often just berating him.
But he stood firm, articulated his reasons powerfully. Why fight brown people abroad when Black people faced injustice at home?
It wasn't just defiance, it was a moral argument with real weight, resonating with more and more people questioning the war.
Summoned to court, refuses induction, rejects plea deals, stands his ground.
April 1967, convicted of draft evasion, 5 years prison sentence, hefty fine, passport revoked, boxing license suspended, title stripped.
But he remained defiant. That famous quote about his conscience not letting him shoot his brother or darker people for big, powerful America.
Privately, he suffered, broke, isolated to a degree. But publicly, he had the serenity, knew his soul was his own to keep.
So, 1967, he loses the title, the license, right in his physical prime.
But he doesn't go silent, not at all. He shifts arenas, from the boxing ring to the lecture circuit.
Colleges, churches, community halls, drawing huge, diverse crowds.
People came to hear the fighter who said no, the man who sacrificed millions for principle.
And his speeches changed focus, didn't they? Less boxing, more.
Truth, war, race, poverty, faith, America's contradictions. Delivered with that same conviction, he became this symbol of resistance, using his fame to inspire others to say no.
Transformed from athlete to, well, a figure of moral courage for anti-war activists, a symbol of dignity for Black Americans.
And the government noticed. The FBI monitored him closely. They feared his influence more than his fists by then.
The clock's ticking on his boxing career, but his words are traveling further than ever.
He fundamentally changed the image of what an athlete could be, could have a conscience, could lose everything for what they believed in.
That federal charge violated the Selective Service Act. It wasn't just symbolic. Prison was a real threat.
Very real. The trial was quick, all-white jury. Guilty verdict in under 25 minutes. 5 years, big fine, indefinite ban.
But he remained free on appeal.
Yeah, his lawyers argued his refusal was based on religious belief, his role as a minister in the Nation of Islam.
Which raised complex legal questions about recognizing the nation, his sincerity.
Exactly. It led to 4 years of legal limbo. Can't box, can't earn much. He's giving speeches, teaching a bit, training privately, but just waiting, longing to get back.
Meanwhile, the heavyweight division moves on. Joe Frazier rises, becomes champ.
But Ali remains steadfast. No compromise.
Finally, 1971, the Supreme Court agrees to hear his case. Last chance.
And they rule 8-0 unanimously to overturn his conviction.
But importantly, it wasn't necessarily an endorsement of his views, right? It was more technical.
Precisely. They found the law regarding conscientious objector status had been misapplied in his case. But the result was the same. Legally free, and the anticipation for his return to the ring, it was immense.
So 1970, his license gets reinstated in Georgia. Kind of a loophole situation?
Yeah, Georgia didn't have a state athletic commission then. That opened the door. First fight back after 3.5 years. Sold out arena, cameras everywhere.
But the atmosphere was different now.
Definitely divided. Nostalgia, yes. Spectacle, yes. But also a lot of people still unforgiving.
Still hearing draft dodger, anti-American, militant, disgrace.
Veterans protesting outside, boos inside. Even some commentators couldn't hide their disdain. The Ali, who was once just amusing, now felt threatening to some because he was back, unbowed, still Muhammad Ali, still praising the nation.
Media scrutiny intensified, demanding justifications for the past.
The anger wasn't just about the war anymore. It was about what he represented. A Black man prioritizing faith, principle, identity over patriotism, obedience, and returning without shame.
But the counterculture saw him as a hero for that very courage.
Absolutely. So when he stepped back in the ring, he was fighting more than just his opponent. He was fighting a country's conflicted soul, forcing the question, does greatness require forgiveness?
His first fight back against Jerry Corey in Atlanta, October 70. That mixed reception.
You saw the ring rust. Movement's a bit slower, reflexes not quite as sharp.
Flashes of the old Ali, a mid-round taunt.
Flickers, yeah. He won by TKO on a cut. But the question remained, could he really get back to the top?
Then the second fight, Oscar Bonavena in New York, December 70. Much tougher.
Oh, yeah. Bonavena was relentless. Ali struggled, legs slower, defense less sharp, took real punches, bled.
But he endured, found a way. 15th round knockdown, TKO win.
But Ali knew. He wasn't the same fighter. That magic of untouchable brilliance was gone. Now he was fighting time itself. And Joe Frazier was waiting. The ultimate test.
March 8th, 1971. Ali versus Frazier I, Madison Square Garden. The most anticipated fight maybe ever.
Arguably, yes. Frazier, the quiet working-class, relentless champ. Ali, the loud, poetic, political ex-champ wanting his title back.
And the fight became this symbol of national division, didn't it? Picking sides was about more than boxing.
Totally. Frazier seen by some as the establishment's guy, the good black man. Ali as the truth teller or the rebel.
The atmosphere in the garden was electric. Celebrities everywhere.
And the fight. Brutal. A war. Frazier's relentless pressure, body shots. Ali trying to float, but showing grit, taking punishment after the layoff.
Back and forth, unbelievable punishment absorbed by both.
Then the 15th round, Frazier's left hook finds the mark. Ali goes down.
He gets up, finishes the fight. But Frazier wins by unanimous decision.
Crowd goes wild. Frazier lifted in victory. Ali walks out head high.
And that quote afterwards, "I lost a fight, not a cause." For his supporters, that loss almost deepened his meaning, didn't it? Symbol of defiance, even in defeat.
Absolutely. Unbreakable spirit.
Okay, fast forward to October 30th, 1974, Kinshasa, Zaire, the rumble in the jungle, that chant, "Ali Bome!"
Ali, kill him. The atmosphere was incredible, more than a fight theater, politics, spectacle, prophecy.
He's facing George Foreman, younger, undefeated, devastating champion, just destroyed Frazier. Everyone thinks Ali's gonna get killed.
He's 32 now, seemingly past his prime. Lost speed, taken damage. Foreman looked invincible.
But Ali understood something others didn't.
He had a plan. The rope-a-dope. Completely unexpected. Leaning on the ropes, letting Foreman punch himself out on his arms, his body, covering up, waiting, taunting him.
Foreman just wasted energy round after round, swinging wildly.
Then, the 8th round, Ali senses it. Foreman's tired, frustrated. Ali comes off the ropes.
Unleashes that flurry. The right hand connects. Foreman goes down.
And stays down. The place explodes. Ali dancing. One of the greatest upsets in sports history. A personal resurrection.
He didn't just beat Foreman physically, did he? He outthought him, outweighted him, reclaimed the magic, became timeless.
Masterful. Absolutely masterful.
Then comes the third fight with Frazier. October 1st, 1975. Manila. The Thrilla in Manila. Brutal conditions, right? Heat, humidity.
Unbelievable conditions. It was a rubber match. Nobody expected it to go the distance after their previous wars.
But it transcended strategy quickly. Became personal. Grudge, pain, pride.
Frazier relentless, pushing forward. Ali jabbing, combining. Both men absorbing tremendous punishment from the start.
By round 10, they were barely functioning.
Ali whispered between rounds, "Man, this is the closest thing to dying."
And before the 15th, Eddie Futch stops it in Frazier's corner. He couldn't see. Too much damage.
Ali wins by TKO, but he collapses afterwards. Too weak to celebrate. The toll was immense on both.
Hailed as one of the greatest fights ever. Maybe the greatest. But it left deep marks. Lingering bitterness, partly from Ali's pre-fight taunts.
Though Ali later admitted profound respect for Frazier's heart in that trilogy.
Sometimes greatness is just about enduring, isn't it? Not just winning.
The Thrilla proved that beyond any doubt.
Let's move to a tougher chapter. October 2, 1980. Las Vegas. Ali versus Larry Holmes.
Yeah, this one's hard to watch back. Ali's 38, retired, come back. Early signs of neurological damage are there.
But he comes back anyway. The pull of the legend.
And he's fighting Holmes, his former sparring partner, his protege, now the champ. Holmes reluctantly took the fight, needed to prove himself against the legend.
The build-up felt cruelly nostalgic. Fans hopeful, but uneasy.
And the fight. It was a one-sided beating from the start. Ali's body just couldn't do it anymore. Speed gone, reflexes gone.
Holmes was visibly reluctant, wasn't he? Apologizing between rounds, begging the ref to stop it.
Finally, after 10 brutal rounds, Angela Dundee stops it. The only time Ali was ever stopped in his career.
Holmes was emotional afterwards. Said it wasn't Muhammad Ali out there.
The world was shocked to see him so vulnerable, but paradoxically.
Even in defeat, he became more human. Fragile, enduring. Deepened the legend somehow.
Strange how that works, isn't it? The contrast between the boast about turning off the light switch and his slow movements then. Yet the public's love seemed to grow. They saw the man returning perhaps out of a need he felt.
The signs of physical decline were already there in the late 70s. Slight tremors, speech slurring.
Then the official diagnosis in 1984. Parkinson's disease. Devastating for a man defined by movement and speech.
The man who floated like a butterfly now struggled with simple tasks. The Louisville Lip's voice softened. An invisible opponent inside his own body.
But he refused to hide. That's what was so remarkable. Continued public appearances. Award shows, charity events, diplomatic visits.
Shaking visibly, speaking rarely, but that smile.
Yeah.
It still commanded the room.
He became the symbol of endurance, a living echo of his myth, fragile and fearless at the same time.
Behind the scenes, the daily struggles were immense. Simple tasks became challenges.
Yet he kept showing up. Believed people needed to see him, not just the fighter, but the journey. Meeting presidents, visiting war zones, refugee camps. His presence alone had impact.
His silence became almost sacred, his presence a kind of prayer.
And that quote about God giving him Parkinson's to show who the real greatest was? That humility deepened the myth, didn't erase it. He remained a voice, even after his words faded.
He was married 4 times, had 9 children. His public focus contrasted with a sometimes chaotic family life for decades.
He loved his children, no doubt, but the career demanded so much. Frequent absences were unavoidable.
So his kids have different perspectives. Some admire the legend, but longed for the father.
Hannah remembers a tender, spiritual dad writing poems. Layla felt the pressure of the name, following him into boxing. Others had more fragmented relationships.
Seeing him more on TV than at home sometimes.
But later in life, especially as Parkinson's slowed him down, he made efforts to bridge those gaps, didn't he?
Quiet efforts. More calls, letters, just being present.
Maybe the slowing down allowed for more focus on family. His kids became central in those final decades, providing love and support.
Photos from that time show him surrounded by family, that gentle smile, the trembling hand.
Reconciliation wasn't necessarily universal or perfect, but he tried. His children now speak of a man who ultimately understood love needs more than admiration. It needs time, presence.
Think about the contrast. Young Clay throwing the medal away in disillusionment.
And the aging Ali shaking with Parkinson's, lighting the Olympic flame in Atlanta in 1996.
The collective gasp from the crowd when he emerged as the final torchbearer. The visible tremors, but the undeniable power of his presence.
A powerful connection back to Rome, the discrimination he faced then.
Slowly, shakily lifting the torch, igniting the flame, the stadium bathed in light. A silent, powerful moment.
For younger generations, he was the symbol of standing for something. For older ones, many who'd condemned him.
A moment of reckoning, calling him a hero now.
And Ali's silent forgiveness just by being there with grace. The Olympics brought him back not as an athlete, but as a reminder that history can sometimes apologize.
His final decades were marked by increasing silence, but his presence amplified his impact.
Made people listen harder, watch closer. He became this unofficial diplomat, elder statesman, humanitarian missions, peace conferences.
Meeting world leaders, comforting kids, standing with refugees, his presence changed the atmosphere.
Visiting Cuba, Iraq during sensitive times, a presence in places of suffering and hope, a universal symbol.
Strength with humility, dignity and faith, redemption for the West, hope for children.
Even as he needed more physical help, the reverence grew. That quiet humility saying God gave him Parkinson's to show who's truly greatest.
He remained a speaking voice, even when the words were faint.
His death, June 3, 2016, age 74. The global reaction was immense.
And the public funeral in Louisville, just as he'd wished. He planned parts of it himself, didn't he?
Wanted people of all backgrounds, all beliefs, to see him as a man of the world.
And Louisville stood still that day. Crowds lining the streets, tributes at his childhood home, the Columbia Gym.
The attendees were incredibly diverse. Black, white, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, atheist, united in mourning.
Prominent figures spoke. Presidents, religious leaders, entertainers, boxers, activists.
Billy Crystal captured his humor, beauty, greatness, even his silent communication. Rabbi Lerner praised his courage. Atala Shabazz, Malcolm's daughter, read poetry silently. A moment of reconciliation.
With a final message, transcending limitations, becoming truly himself.
As his casket was carried out, that chant, Ali, 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 a legend returning home, his words echoing, live every day as if it were your last. The final bell brought grief, but also gratitude.
He's gone, but his presence, his impact, it endures. You still hear echoes of his voice, literally and figuratively.
In locker rooms, courtrooms, everywhere. His influence on how we see athletes, religion, race, resistance, it's undeniable.
A complex, contradictory figure.
Yeah.
Playful and serious, faithful and flawed, proud and human.
He taught us about victory, dignity, and that the fight for beliefs is ongoing. He could unite and divide, often at the same time.
Maybe his honesty was his most radical act, in a world often focused on performance.
Always willing to answer the bell, even at great personal cost. That legacy lives on in every act of courage, every, oh, this isn't right.
Imperfect, outspoken, disobedient to expectations,
Yeah.
but ultimately, Muhammad Ali. And in the echo of that name, we still hear the sound of greatness.
Yeah, this deep dive, it really took us on that incredible journey. From Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. The challenges, the impact, it's profound. We've navigated the complexities of this unique man who just consistently defied expectations.
So as you, our listener, reflect on all this, maybe consider, how does Ali's story challenge your own ideas about identity, conviction, the price of greatness? What parts of his life really resonate with you? What lessons stick? Definitely worth continuing to think about the themes we explored today. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.